What do you want to be? How do you want to live? In 1929, Charlotte Perriand reclined on a chaise lounge that she had designed the year before with Corbusier and Pierre Teneray. She was 26 at that time, young and brave and embracing the challenges of 20th century modernity. Perhaps she was already faintly aware that her ideas in art, architecture, and design would invent a whole new world during what would become her 70-year career. It was a world where tradition and modernity coexisted, man and nature communicated, and the boundaries between artistic and intellectual disciplines were eliminated. In October 2019, with the 20th century having ended nearly 20 years before, the Louis Vuitton Foundation in Bois de Boulogne of Paris presented a major exhibition to mark the 20th anniversary of the death of Charlotte Perriand, who pioneered 20th century art and design. The foundation engaged all its galleries in the display of 400 pieces of artwork that explored the links between art, architecture, and design. 7 spaces that Perriand had created were reconstructed, leading visitors to rethink the meaning and relation of art and living.
L'idée était de célébrer l'une des plus grandes créatrices du XXe siècle. Une créatrice qui est née en 1903, a disparu en 1999, a traversé donc tout le XXe siècle et a eu une influence considérable, bien sûr sur l'architecture, bien sûr sur le design, mais sur tous les grands mouvements culturels, sociaux, même politiques du XXe siècle. Il faut savoir que sa vision du monde était de replacer l'homme, l'individu, au centre des projets de création, des projets architecturaux, des projets artistiques. Et qu'elle a mené un combat très important pour la place des femmes dans le monde de la création, dans le monde artistique.
The Roaring Twenties was full of automobiles. Charlotte Perriand, with her ball-bearing necklace, showed no hesitation to join it. For her, it was an age of the machine. She began to imagine an art of dwelling that changed the paradigms of her era. In 1927, she designed her iconic swivel armchair, made with traditional leather and modern steel. It had sharp lines and a swivel mechanism that facilitated movement, mimicking the automobiles that fascinated her.
Charlotte est une avant-gardiste qui a été parmi les premières à concevoir du mobilier en métal dès la fin des années 1920. Elle a contribué à bouleverser et à inventer l'architecture intérieure moderne.
In 1927, she produced a new solution for her apartment studio on Place Saint-Sulpice. The modern chrome tube furniture differed strikingly with the fashion of that time. At least 2 gramophones were installed because acoustics would play a vital role in her living spaces. Throughout her career, the main purpose of design was to serve mankind. Also in 1927, she created her work and sport project and designed the bar under the roof, the latter of which especially impressed Corbusier. In the same year, Perriand joined the studio of Le Corbusier, Many of her creations became the symbols of 20th century furniture design. Take the chair as an example. It is a basic element in interior design. Perriand reshaped the piece in geometrical forms which emphasized the concept of space. She also enhanced its functionality through precise calculations based on ergonomics, aesthetics, techniques, and materials. At the 1929 Salon d'Automne, Charlotte Perriand collaborated with Corbusier and Pierre Jeanneret in a setting named Interior Design of a Dwelling. This modern apartment, created 90 years ago, was highly innovative. It was precise in plan and practical for use. The chairs were adjustable. All furniture was placed in a free style, presenting an interactive space that served multiple functions. The cabinets were at a human height, adaptable for both storage and partition. Balance was achieved between objects and space, as well as between designer and user. The relationship between man and space was also carefully thought out. Perriand's passion for living generated a deep sense of companionship with fellow artists. During the 1930s, she ventured into the woods with Fondation Louis Vuitton and Pierre Jeanneret, foraging for driftwood, pebbles, scrap metal, and bits of bone that became the subjects of their art brut photographs. Artists of this period were extensively inspired by nature. Corbusier rendered in his paintings the poetry of ordinary objects. Fondation Louis Vuitton attributed nature to the primitive. Perriand found in nature the traces of time. It was the very power of nature that inspired Perriand to create her first free-form table with organic curves. The irregular shape was seemingly a replica of the natural form, allowing more space for user, while the tripod base provided more possibilities for movement.
Elle disait, on peut avoir chez soi des œuvres magnifiques sans être forcément très riche. Il suffit de regarder la nature. Et elle avait une expression très poétique. Elle disait, il faut avoir l'œil en éventail. Et je pense que ça parlera à nos amis chinois. L'œil en éventail, ça veut dire ouvrir les yeux sur le monde qui vous entoure. Et en fait, on va trouver dans la nature la beauté, l'harmonie, la poésie, et on va pouvoir placer dans son cadre de vie des œuvres naturelles.
At the Brussels International Exhibition of 1935, Perriand explored further the concept of nature with her design, House for a Young Man. The space was bathed in light and interspersed with artworks, creative pieces, and modern furniture. The collection wall behind the table displayed the objects found in nature, beside which there was a painting by Fondation Louis Vuitton with botanical motifs. This assembly was intended for a synthesis of the arts, while her manifesto sideboard demonstrated her thinking on urban and social life.
Ce qui m'impressionne le plus, en effet, c'est que l'extrême modernité de Perriand s'opère au travers d'un nouveau rapport avec la nature. C'est-à-dire que la modernité doit être construite, tout cela pour le bonheur de l'homme. La modernité ne veut pas dire une rupture, une agression, une dévaluation de la nature et de l'environnement. Et en cela, Perriand est totalement d'avant-garde.
The 20th century was also full of changes. Determined to give voice to the era, Perriand used giant photomontages as her manifesto to reveal the duality of that age. Everything was there, and at the same time, nothing was. During the Spanish Civil War in the late 1930s, Perriand armed herself with art and denounced the cruelty of war. She kept in touch with Joan Miró and Pablo Picasso. Picasso's Guernica had a huge impact on her. In 1938, Perriand was commissioned to design a desk for the writer and journalist Jean-Jacques Bloch. It was in a free form, convenient for conversing with the editor and for the movement of the body. Next to it was a coffee table, the top of which featured an abstract pattern by Fondation Louis Vuitton and an etching by Pablo Picasso. All seemed to be prelude to the synthesis of the arts a dozen years later. In 1940, she was invited to Japan as an official advisor for industrial design. The next year, she presented the exhibition Selection, Tradition, Creation, which was inspired by Japanese local traditions and concepts in space. She learned about the qualities of bamboo and redesigned the metal chaise lounge, which had been exhibited in 1929. Those thin bamboo slats differed from the metal in meaning and appearance, while shadows and gaps danced in the spaces. Later, she made a long journey to Vietnam and studied wood and weaving, which inspired her redesign of previous works. Those new works featured her deep insights and respect for the different concepts of beauty in various cultures. In total, she spent 6 years in the East and garnered rich inspiration for her later works. Meanwhile, she influenced a whole generation of Japanese designers. Back in France, she took part in post-war reconstruction. In 1947, a magazine imagined a cabinet of governmental ministries headed exclusively by women, naming her the Minister of Reconstruction. She also summoned friends to take part in reconstruction. In the Useful Forms exhibition, a mobile by Alexander Calder hung alongside a tapestry by Jean Miró, not far from a painting by Fondation Louis Vuitton. In 1952, she designed the student rooms for Cité Internationale Université de Paris. It illustrated her approach to minimal spaces and the intimate integration of furniture, architecture, and art. The bookshelf was also a partition, both sides of which could be used as storage. There were also bookcases installed on the walls with a variety of colors and neat lines. The asymmetrical arrangements tended to oscillate, bringing the space to life. The relationship of art and architecture was more evident in the 1955 Tokyo exhibition, Proposal for a Synthesis of the Arts. Perriand designed a space that brought paintings, sculptures, tapestries, furniture, and architecture together, eliminating the boundaries between disciplines.
Où les arts, je dirais, vivaient entre eux, où la peinture regardait le design, où l'architecture regardait la tapisserie. Et en fait, au milieu de tout ça, c'était l'homme qui était placé pour une vie idéale, une vie de bonheur, une vie harmonieuse.
The utopian proposition was championed by the Galerie Steph Simon in Paris. Her iconic modular structure was not merely a simple combination of blocks. but was an assembly of surprising effects. Though common today, those designs and ideas were actually proposed by her as she anticipated the behavioral norms of today. It demonstrated how visionary she was. The apartment she designed in Rio illustrated her capacity for constant renewal. The bookcase was revised with canework similar to the shutters. Akari lanterns, named Lighting Rio by Isamu Noguchi, were also introduced. The washi paper was folded into blocks, which were then stacked into a bigger structure. Perriand was always ready to embrace new methods and materials while remaining faithful to her own principles. Design useful forms and integrate both cutting-edge technologies and the savoir-faire of different cultures. In the apartment designed for the prominent art collector Maurice Jacquot, Perriand brought visual arts and interior architecture together. The space was lined by white edges. Bronze sculptures by Henri Laurent seemed to dance elegantly. In the 1960s, Perriand was commissioned to revise the interior design of the Musée National d'Art Moderne de Paris. The space was renewed to eliminate the cold sense of distance, inviting a dialogue between visitors and works. The relationship between displaying and seeing was tactfully explored.
Ce qui est très important chez elle, c'est qu'elle n'opère pas de hiérarchie entre les arts. Tous les arts sont égaux. Voilà. Donc l'architecture, le design, la peinture, l'art, tout cela, ça concourt à un nouvel art de vivre, une nouvelle harmonie pour la vie au XXIe siècle, la vie d'aujourd'hui.
As an architect, Perriand also adopted in her works a humanistic approach, which was obvious in House Beside the Water. She introduced nature into the interior architecture, which reflected an essential property in mankind. The space was opened out to the surroundings, making it functional and poetic at the same time. When we see the world as a series of relationships between people, objects, and nature, we will find that the elements in Perriand's designs transform our understanding and illustrate universal sympathy. As early as the 1930s, Perriand began to design prefabricated buildings. She insisted that the architects must work in the service of humanity. In 1938, she collaborated with Pierre Jeanneret in the design of Barrel Refuge. No single component was heavier than 40 kilograms, and it was assembled by 6 people in only 3 days. The project for the ski resort Les Arcs in Savoie ran from 1969 to 1987. Perriand did not apply traditional structures. The wonders of the Alpines were preserved, and the man-made buildings were but humble ornaments. In 1993, Perriand was commissioned by UNESCO for the creation of Tea House. For this tiny moment, the tumultuous 20th century that she had lived through seemed to return to calm. A modern structure was adopted where nature and man were presented equally in peace and harmony. A new world of art and nature was thus invented. The world of Charlotte Perriand was about fluidity of lines and the assembly of objects. It was built upon imagination, determination, and the ability to forge the future.
Charlotte Perriand a toujours été une femme très très engagée. Toutes les questions qu'elle s'est posées pendant 70 ans de création, car elle a créé de 1925 à la fin du siècle, sont des questions que l'on retrouve aujourd'hui entièrement dans la société contemporaine.
Donc en fait, c'est une femme qui était totalement en avance, qui a été pionnière de la modernité dans toute une série de domaines, et ça a justifié la décision de la Fondation Louis Vuitton de consacrer l'ensemble de ces galeries, l'ensemble de ces espaces à une seule artiste.
What do you want to be? How do you want to live? Charlotte Perriand answered that it was not the new technologies that mattered, but rather the way people used them. Recollections of the 20th century help us realize that the world of Perriand has become our daily experience. So this new world belongs not only to the 20th and the 21st centuries, but also for centuries to come, as long as man lives.